was a requirement.
And we need to make sure
Mhm.
baby is down. Baby's going down for a
Okay.
nap. So
Baby's napping.
yeah.
So, welcome to our, again, what's this, our 6th review.
Is it? I feel like it's 4th.
Well, 6 episodes.
But the first one we did all 3 at the beginning, yeah?
Oh, we did?
I think
Oh.
so, yeah.
Because remember, they released 3 in 1.
All right. That's right. Okay, this is our 4th review on 6 episodes. How's that? All right, so
All right, let's see who's joining us here.
who is joining us?
Okay.
Who's there?
Not yet. No one yet. They're probably just getting notification. But
Oh, okay. So,
okay, so we're reviewing episode 6 from House of David. For those of you who've been following us, we appreciate you joining us again today, and we'll be talking about this particular episode. This is actually my favorite one so far. What do you think?
yes, it is. It is the best so far. But before we move on,
Best show far.
shall we pray?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. All right, guys, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for, again, being our God and knowing that we serve you, Lord, and there is no other that we serve. You are the one true living God, the God of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. And Lord, we ask that you be with us today as we discuss the show on Amazon Prime, that the House of David. We pray, Lord, that your truth will be made known, and that whatever sources are used to tell the story, we can distinguish truth from lies and from the fluff and stuff that sometimes Hollywood likes to do. So we ask that you, Lord, again, give us a discerning mind, wisdom, and that we can, Lord, share this with the world. We pray this in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen.
All right. So as we get into this rundown on episode 6, I want to actually go back in time to episode 4. Because in episode 4, this is where David was summoned to the royal palace. Do you remember? For the first time. And there was, again, a need for his presence. And David and his older brother Eliav knew nothing about it. And they were highly concerned about why he's being asked to come to the palace. If you recall that earlier, David was anointed as the new king of Israel. So they're very concerned whether they got found out, whether they're going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
So upon arriving to the palace, the queen looks at the summoned musician, which is David again. And they both are looking at David, you notice the queen is here, and the queen has the Witch of Endor.
They can't see it yet. Let's ask Isaac to move it.
I didn't turn it.
He's
I'm
describing
sorry.
the picture here.
I'm describing the picture. Yeah, why would you guys want to look at us? The picture's up there.
Alrighty.
All right.
I'm gonna go back to the old one.
Just go to that one. In fact, I can go right here.
Maybe you should turn it
There you go.
the other way so you don't film.
Oh, okay.
Your
No,
wife.
that's right. Totally right.
Okay.
All right. So this is David again playing his lyre, and then he's hanging out. Then the call, the summons comes to him, and he and his brothers are kind of like, whoa, what's going on? And then the queen is there. They arrive at the palace, and the Witch of Endor is right there to the left. The queen is sitting down, and Eliav, again, is David's eldest brother. He respectfully asks the queen, "Why did you summon my brother, O queen?" And the queen responded by saying that she has heard of David's reputation and requires him to be of service to the king. Still didn't really answer, oh man, I'm in trouble now. And then Michal shares with David that she recommended him to come and play for the king. David plays his lyre for the troubled king. The song and music, again, is soothing to the king's ear. And, David's just hitting it. He's going to have a top 10 hit with this song.
Mm-hmm.
And the king finds peace finally because he's been tormented by that demonic spirit. He finds peace in David singing and his music playing. And we missed it. Patrick, you in Star Wars, you funny guy. Okay, so we did miss it. And what did we miss? Well, here we get from chapter, oh man, I didn't put it on there. What is it, chapter 16? First Samuel? It's, okay, well, this is Lisa or Isaac. Can you read that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Isaac read.
Now the spirit of Yah departed from Saul, and a harmful spirit from the Lord tormented him. And Saul's servants said to him, Behold now, a harmful spirit from Yah is tormenting you. Let our Lord now command your servants, who are before you, to seek out a man who is skillful in playing the lyre. And when the harmful spirit from Yah is upon you, he will play it, and you will be well. Excuse me. So Saul said to his servants, Provide for me a man who can play well, and bring him to me. One of the young men answered, Behold, I have seen a son of... Therefore Saul sent messengers to Jesse and said, Send me David, your son, who is with the sheep.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, so
chapter
it was
16.
chapter 16. Thank you, son. So it was chapter 16. Again, 1 Samuel chapter 16. So this biblical account actually disputes the Amazon Prime account that Michael was the one that summoned David to play for her father, Saul. So again, just wanted to point that out. Sorry we missed it.
They said there's a lot of buffering going on.
Buffering.
Yeah.
Buffering.
I don't have it. It's not buffering on my phone. I'm not sure. For Sharon and Tammy, it's buffering. Okay, sorry about that. But we're not getting any buffering going on here, guys. Not sure.
Maybe you need to take some buffering.
No.
Aspirin? No? That
No.
won't work?
Good to see you, Patrick, Phil, Sharon,
Hey, Phil.
Tammy,
Patrick.
Tree.
Phil,
Good to see you guys.
Patrick, can you guys tell us if you hear our
Phil
voices?
said it's not bad for him.
It's not bad? Okay.
And Tammy said it's been bad weather there all day. So maybe
Okay.
it's only certain areas. So, sorry, guys.
Yeah. Please,
We can't change that.
yeah, we spent a few $100s on these new lavalier mics. Hate to say they're useless or not worth the money.
Maybe it's the Wi-Fi too.
Well, that particular lag that they're talking about would not be the sound quality. It would be the connection quality.
Yeah. So you're not getting buffering on your phone either.
No.
Yeah? Okay.
Okay.
That's why I was watching it.
All right. So here we are again on the House of David, and episode 6 opens up dramatically with this image, the image that they're showing us, and it's actually pretty cool. Look at this. I mean, I'm wondering how they did that. Is that AI? But here you have,
Yeah.
again,
I think so.
you have angels, and whatnot in a skirmish, if you want to call it that. But it's pretty rad. And then it moves on to angels now falling from the sky. And if you can't see the picture good enough, how's this? There is a picture of somebody falling, and falling is never a good thing. It's it's going to hurt in the end. And here's another one that's pointed out, and these supposedly were angels that Orpah was narrating in the beginning of this episode. And as they're falling, she's telling the story about the Watchers, and the Watchers again finally hit ground, but they're not hitting ground. They're at Mount Hermon, and they're looking over the land, and they see beautiful daughters of men.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's Genesis of Bereshit, chapter 6, verses 1 to 4, 1 to 5. And when you hear the story, Orpah is recounting the story to her sons, that these beautiful women, these daughters of men, are just there right for the taking, it's a meat market. And
Tammy said, yes, it's AI generated. And if the angels look like that, no wonder we're in trouble. Good point. Good point.
Hey, Tammy, they're probably better looking than what you see right now, because you know why? These guys could manifest themselves in ways that spoke to each individual woman. One woman might like a bearded guy. Another woman might want a shaven guy. Long hair, short hair, big nose, whatever.
Whatever you desire.
Whatever you desire. To look like Pee Wee Herman for all I care.
Shay said, is that why they call it falling in love? Because it's going to hurt in the end?
It always hurts in the end, Shay. So here is one of the examples of the so-called Watchers or fallen angels that decided to what? To do the nasty. This is supposedly Semyaza, and
Take wives among themselves.
yeah, you notice it's plural, right?
Yep.
So it's not just one wife. It's
Many wives.
take as many women as they wanted to be wives, and they're not going to be calling up the church to make arrangements for a nice wedding. No, this is a nice way of saying they took them, They did them, and that was it. Wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. And it's all over. They're going to have children, and they got a lot of children. But here, the angel is saying, can I show you my 8-pack? And then you'll fall in love with me more when you see my guns.
What?
And so the angel is walking to the woman, and the woman's saying, dang, you don't have an ounce of fat on you, do you? He goes, but I don't care because I got Revlon makeup on,
Oh my god.
and I look good. I look hot. Yeah.
And of course, this would have been one of the daughters of Cain.
Yeah.
These would not be the offspring of Seth.
Yeah, because they
very
did makeup, right?
Yep.
What's funny is that now they're saying, yes, I will have you as my wife. Wow, and there you go. They're sniffing each other out, making sure they brush their teeth.
Sniffing each other.
And they're saying, yep, okay, you use close up, that's good to go. All right, so they fall in love and they have babies. There you go. Here's that AI generated image of a watcher with a daughter of Cain, and then now we move on because they don't want to show anything X-rated. It's PG. Now they're showing later on that here you have a result of that union between a fallen angel and a daughter of Cain, and here is a giant. Why he has wings, I'm not sure. Maybe
The earlier ones might have.
Patrick said,
it was probably more like put out or die.
they forced them because it said they took wives, all whom they chose. And so
So
they probably were already married, like these women.
yeah, they could have been married already. They could have children. Just whatever was attractive to the watcher,
Yeah.
they took. And you're right, Patrick. It's put out or die. But actually, in truth, it's put out and then you will die because when you give birth to a giant, you'll be torn apart. You know what I mean? Essentially, only the real big girls were the ones to survive because they were able to handle a big giant coming out of them, like Orpah, for example. So here we go. We have another nice picture that shows that, yeah, there was a battle going on, and this battle was just extreme. God's angels, holy angels, told God, are you going to do anything about these guys? And God says, yes, I am going to do something about it. And now he sends his archangels to go get those rebellious angels
Hmm.
and says, okay, take them out, guys. You know what I mean? Take them out. And he does. He takes them out. He brings them to the barbecue, puts them on fire, sends them down to a desert. So you see them all falling down. That's significant of the fact that these are fallen angels on fire, and that they are going to meet their doom in what was the name of that desert again?
Duda El.
Duda El. Thank you, my love.
Do the L?
Yep.
And we know where Duda El is located. It's the deepest underwater, I guess you call it an abyss on Earth. It's like a huge cavern that's been discovered. And it's got to be somewhere near where paradise is because they're right next to each other at Judgment Day.
Mm.
So it's actually right off the coast of the Philippines, the deepest abyss that nobody can go in there. It's sealed in the
If
top.
you're a scuba diver, you want to avoid that area. That's all I can say.
Yeah,
All right.
probably.
So then we come to the next image where the story continues, where these giants again are now ruling the world.
They took over.
They took over. We now come to a scene that shows from the previous episode, a few episodes before, that Reuben, the small boy, the only one that survived the first border town that got demolished by this giant and the Philistines. And again, this is an account that is being replayed by Orpah. Orpah is telling the story, and here you have one of the giants painting or drawing a picture. I didn't know they were accomplished artists because that's a pretty good drawing.
Well, they were skilled in a lot of areas.
Yeah,
I don't
but
put it
drawing,
past
I
them.
mean, I know I can see where Tammy can draw like that, but not anybody else. Not a giant anyway. A giant that has gigantic fingers. Okay. So here he is sitting down, just drawing because they got nothing better to do. Amazon Prime's not available at that time. So they're just, defacing and the mountain, the caves. And then here Orpah is telling them, hey guys, you know what? Don't worry. There's a future for us still. Okay. And now we move to the city of God. I think, what do you want to talk about first?
I'm going to just go back to what Orpah was narrating. Something is
Okay.
up with my voice though.
Okay, we're gonna go back.
Excuse
Orpah
me.
was narrating, and she had something to share.
Yeah, so my voice is really messed up. Maybe I can get Isaac to read this for me just because I need to like clear my throat or do something here. This is from the book of First Enoch, and we're going to have him read chapter 6. So this narrative right there. So this should sound really familiar
Sure.
because this is what Orpah was quoting at the very beginning, and I picked up on that right away because at first I thought it was Genesis 6, 1-4, and then she kept going and talking. I was like, oh no, that is First Enoch. So I was really excited about that. Hold on just a second. I'm going to, while he's reading that, I'm gonna clear my throat.
Genesis 6 only touches on the Enochian story. So if you have the book First Enoch, or you want to go online and read it for free, make sure you get First Enoch, okay, not Second Enoch, not Third Enoch, First Enoch, okay, and this is the BW as abbreviated, or the Book of the Watchers. Then this is chapter 6 that Isaac will be reading. So Isaac, go ahead.
Wait, in Genesis, they basically just talk about. They don't even talk about Nephilim or anything, right?
They do. Genesis says, and the Watchers came. They saw the daughters of men, and they took them as wives, and then the Nephilim came along.
Oh, okay.
I was going to have you read Genesis 6 also.
Oh, okay.
But go ahead and read that first.
And it came to pass when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semyaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then swear they all together and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And they were in all 200 who descended in the days of Yared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they had swore and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And these are the names of their leaders.
And you don't have to read all this. I actually just going to have you stop. Because the main thing, I wanted you to see that there is a connection to Semyaza, and that's what she was quoting. So she didn't quote all their leaders or anything, but up to that point.
Right.
And then Genesis chapter 6, this is what I thought it was at first, because First Enoch is being quoted by the author of Genesis. So Genesis 6, 1-4, this should be really familiar to everybody here, I think, if you've studied about the giants at all. When people began to multiply on the face of the ground, and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw they were fair, and they took wives for themselves of all they chose. Then the Lord said, My spirit shall not abide in mortals forever, for they are flesh. Their days shall be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went into the daughters of humans, who bore children to them. These were the heroes that were of old, warriors of renown. And when it says of old, that's usually a reference to antediluvian times, like, before the flood. And so they existed then, before the flood, and after the flood. And so in order to understand what is going on here with Orpah and how she is like the mother of giants, you have to do a little bit of a background check just to see first of all, who is Semyaza, all right? And then who is Semyaza's offspring that came from Semyaza mating with women before the flood. Now, if you look at Semyaza, Shem, do you know what does Shem mean in Hebrew? Do you remember? Name. And so if you look at the last part of Semyaza,
The name of Yah.
Azza,
Oh.
the name of Azza. Azza is a nickname for an angel that sounds very much like that, Azazel.
Oh.
So Semyaza is actually, my name is Azazel, basically.
Oh, okay.
So it's another.
Yah. Like Yah.
And then it's kind of, there's been a debate on this because there's both Azazel and Semyaza mentioned in the book of Enoch, but according to Gary Wayne and some other authors that I've been reading, to Brett Thomas, who's going to be on Zen's channel tomorrow, and Gary Wayne's book, it says that they're pretty much one and the same entity. I'm not sure why the author of First Enoch, or the translator, decided to make it into two separate, but Shemyaza and Azazel, they're one and the same, and it's the same entity as the serpent who deceived Eve and raped Eve in the garden. So this guy this fallen angel has had a ton of offspring. Like, he created a lot of giants. So we're going to see who some of those are today.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that kind of helps to know the background of this, right? All right, so I'm going to read from Gary Wayne's book. If you guys have Gary Wayne's book 2 of the Genesis 6 conspiracy, you can turn there with me if you'd like to take a look at this and just see who these people are and how they relate with King Og. The reason why we need to know how they relate with King Og, I'll show you, because that'll show you who's Orpah and who are Orpah's children, right? So I was kind of excited to find all this information in Gary Wayne's book, because I was looking through all these extra biblicals trying to figure out which one I should read. So I'm going to go ahead and read from page 433 in Gary Wayne's book, and I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs in here about Og. All right. So Og remained, and by inference, Sihon also, that was one of Og's good buddies. These remained as the remnant of the giants, which is odd language because Anakim and other tribes tallied in Deuteronomy 2 were also Rephaim. There were giants like Talmai, Ahiman, who dwelled among the Canaanites after Sihon and Og died. The language indicates Og was the last of the first generation of post-Diluvian giants. Now, how did that work? Because we read in Legends of the Jews that there was at least 2 giants that survived. Although from the God culture research, we find that there was actually a Nephilim Ark that was found in Turkey, and Ron Wyatt thought that he was finding Noah's Ark, but the measurements were wrong, the materials are wrong, and the location was wrong. It had to be east of the land of Shinar, not west, is where Turkey's at. So there could have been a lot more giants surviving than what we know, but in the Bible there's mentioned Og and Sihon as the remnants. So we get King Og's iron bed, 9 cubits long, 4 cubits wide. So he was, compared to the giants before the flood, Og was really small, in my opinion. Even though he was massive, he was this huge giant that lived, and he was one of the rulers of the land of Canaan. Okay. And the way he survived the flood, do you remember what we talked about, the different ways the giants could have survived the flood, besides the Nephilim Ark?
Yeah, I think Og was the one that climbed on Noah's boat, right?
Yeah.
He was on the top of the boat.
Mm-hmm.
Hiding out.
We get that in Legends of the Jews, the Writings of Abraham, a couple of other extra biblicals of how these two, but they had to survive the flood because one of the triggers to know that these guys, they didn't have an ancestry mentioned in Table of Nations or anywhere. Like, where did these guys come from? The same thing is true of the Horites. That was one of the original Nephilim clans that they lived underground, and so there's a good chance that they could have survived the flood underground as well, their clan. That's the clan, the Horite, that Esau married into. So that kind of gives you some stuff to think about here as I'm reading this. So Gary Wayne also quotes these non-biblical sources connect Og of the Manichaean Book of Giants, sometimes called the Ogius Book of Giants. Ogius in the Babylonian Talmud was stated to be Og's father, an antediluvian giant who slew a dragon. In the Manichaean Book of Giants, Ogius, his brother was Aya or Haya, and if you've read the Book of Giants, you'll read about these 2 giants who knew Gilgamesh, who's also mentioned in the Book of Giants, right. Oya and Haya.
Oh, so that's where we got karate.
Oya, Haya. It's closely associated with Enoch Book of Giants and the Manichaean Book of Giants, the Lost Book of King Og. That's this book that I had Isaac read from. I love this one. You can buy this on Amazon. It has the books of Og, Enoch, and the Giants all together in one, and I think it's less than $20 for all these 3. So I would recommend getting this book. All right, so
that's a very good deal.
Oh yeah. All right, so anyway, let's see. Ogian is derived from the Latin ogius from the Greek. It was understood in ancient history as primeval from early ages and gigantic as it relates to Ogyges, and so there's a bunch of offspring that Og had there. Og reigned over 60 city-states 12 Pentapolis royal fortresses, and these cities had high and mighty walls, gates, and bars. And this is mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 3, verse 4. We mastered all his cities at that time. There was not a city which we took not from them. 60 cities, all the country round about Argob, belonging to King Og in Bashan. So there's reference there. And then in next verse is all strong cities, lofty walls, gates, and bars, besides the very many cities of the Pharizzites. Okay, so Og reigned over his empire from the cities of Ashtaroth and Edrei near Mount Hermon. Isn't that ironic? He's going to want to reign by Mount Hermon, the very place where probably his father
His
and a bunch of
ancestors,
other, congregated to make that oath.
Yeah.
The former Golan Heights, Enoch states the sons of God swore their oaths to create giants from before the flood. So it's all in that same region where Og's cities were at. All right, there's one other thing I wanted to read about Shemyaza in here before we move on. Let's see. Okay, in Jewish legend, Sihon and Og were brothers, sons of Ahiah, son of a fallen angel named Shemhazai, which is also Shemyaza. So many linguistic experts contend Azazel and Shemyaza were derived from the same Hebrew source word, but were spirited into two separate angels sometime before their introduction in the book of Enoch. Shemyazazel might be the preferred spelling and title that presents a true meaning to the fallen angel Azazel as the strong, harsh, mighty, impudent angel of the heavenly ones of infamy. All right, so in Byron's version, a recreation of the Book of Enoch called Heaven and Earth, a Mystery, Shemyaza was transliterated into Azazel or vice versa. Now listen to this part, because this relates, we had some questions about King Achish. King Achish in this House of David is presented as just like a regular guy. Like he's not like a huge giant or anything from what the Philistines were known as. Oh, there. Okay, so there's King Achish. I'm going to read about Shemyaza first and how it ties into the name Achish. Shemyaza, recorded in Jewish legend by its inference, appears to be a post-Diluvian god of the Baalim, the godfather of Ahiah, and thus Ahiah was likely a brother to Sihon and Og, as Og was the last of the original Rephaim. Josephus recorded that Sihon was Og's best friend, and scripturally, Sihon was an equal to Og. Naming post-Diluvian giants after antediluvian giants was common, as was the case with King Gilgamesh of Uruk, who seemingly was named after the giant recorded in the Enochian Book of Giants. Ahiah has Ak, so it should be Achiah, as its first syllable that means brother. So that's where this king Achish, Ak, is brother Ish. Ak appears in proper names as reflected in the Achiah name that derives Achiah, meaning brother or worshiper of God, and is understood by Israelites as Achiah. It follows that the legendary giant Achiah, if he existed, was a brother of Og and Sihon and of the same tribe from Rapha. Moreover, Ak is the first word of the compounded name Achiman, meaning my brother is a gift or a portion. Achiah likely was the patronymic source for Achish or King Achish. So anyway, the way they portrayed King Achish, my point is that he would not have been a regular guy. Like and he tries to say that, oh, we haven't seen giants around here for so long and all this stuff. And it's like, no, that Philistia was like ridden with giants. It should not have been a surprise to see Goliath and his brothers walking around there, because they were ruling there from the days of Joshua. Like they were not hiding under some mountain in a cave, like what's depicted here. They were always the ones hunting men too. Like why would they have been hunted by men when they could easily destroy men? Like that makes no sense to me.
Oh, I'm sure they could handle a good number of men, but not in the thousands. And they probably met there because Burger King had those Whoppers, those double Whoppers for the Giants. So that was probably more filling for them.
Okay, so Orpah comes into the picture here. So that I just King Achish. I wanted to define that and just show you that this king is portrayed wrong. Also, we get a mention of King Achish when David writes about this king in Psalm chapter 34. This is later on, and I'm sure we'll get into this in House of David, where David pretends to be insane, and he's harbored by King Achish, and then King Achish really believes he's insane. So these kings that are ruling over the Nephilim nations, like Philistia, they're not going to be regular sized guys. In other words, the giants
They're
were
gonna be
always
big. They're gonna be bigger than your
way
average
big.
man.
Yeah, they were probably the same size like Goliath. I mean, they're huge. So I don't know why. Maybe they don't have enough AI to depict King Achish as being big, but that was definitely not correct.
Well, maybe during the show they wanted to emphasize Goliath being larger than life, so they had to make the kings smaller than Goliath, and yet bigger than the average man. Maybe not portrayed here, but maybe that's how it was.
Okay, well, we're going to go into who is Orpah because we get Orpah narrating at the beginning of this episode. We get introduced to Orpah a few episodes ago, right? As
Right.
being like mother of giants. And for people who have only just haven't really dove into the Old Testament books, they might not even have any idea who Orpah actually is. So I wanted to just give a little bit of background on Orpah. I'm going to have Isaac, if you don't mind taking my Bible, Isaac, you can read. You can read for me if you don't mind.
Oh no.
Oh no. Okay.
Are you done with the slides?
Yeah, you can turn it back to us if you want
Let's
to.
see. No, they're not done yet.
No. Okay. So you could take this. If you could look up Ruth chapter 1, verse 14. I'm going to have you read that, and then I'll have you read from 2 Samuel also. But I'm going to read from Gary Wayne while we're waiting for that.
So it goes Matthew, Mark, Ruth, and
No,
John, right?
Ruth is back here. It's funny. All right, so let's see. Page 470 in Gary Wayne is what I was going to read here.
He's after Isaiah.
And this
right?
is to introduce who is Orpah. All right. So page 470 from Gary Wayne's second book. The Amalekites, Ammonites, and Moabites, led by Moabite king Eglon, attacked, defeated, and imposed servitude on Israel for 18 years as a vassal nation. Ammon and Moab were in league with the eastern Amalekites, which opens the door to giants and Amalekite hybrid giants, bolstering the Ammonite and Moabite armies. The eastern Amalekites kept close military ties with the Kadmonim and other peoples east of the Jordan, like the Midianites. King Eglon was a dynastic Rephaim king or hybrid. Now keep that in mind because King Eglon was the father of both Orpah and Ruth. These are the Moabite women that married two Hebrew men, the sons of Naomi. And then Naomi's husband died and her two sons died, leaving her with two widows. Well, actually three widows, Naomi and her two daughters-in-law. If you know the story, Ruth decided to stay with Naomi and worship her God, while Orpah left to go back to the palace, and we're going to find out what Orpah did there. So just keep in mind, these are hybrids. Like these Moabites, they were the offspring of Lot and his union with his daughter. And and that was right after the burning of Sodom and Gomorrah when that union happened. They thought, I guess the daughters thought they were the last ones on earth, and so they wanted to make sure they had sons or offspring or something, so they decided to be with their father, which is just bizarre. But King Eglon was the dynastic Rephaim king or hybrid. His name was patriarch from a royal Canaanite city reigned over by the Anakim king Debir that Joshua conquered, and a city allied with kings of Jerusalem and Hebron in the central campaign. Eglon is defined as calf-like, a reference to the bull cult, the bulls of Bashan of Mount Hermon, and the Ugarit Rephaim, who were referenced as strong bulls. Eglon's rule levied tribute and servitude upon Israel that reduced them to poverty. God strengthened Eglon as and hardened his heart to provide courage to punish Israel. Strengthen can also mean to grow stout, which is interesting because Eglon was described as a very fat man. All right, so very or mo'od can alternatively be translated as mighty, mightily, and force, while fat, which is bari, can be translated as firm, with the latter connected to strength in Psalm 73, verse 4, but their strength is firm. So in other words, one could translate a very fat man as a mighty, firm, stout man of strength. In other words, Eglon was most likely a giant. He was either a giant-like king, a very fat king, or perhaps both. All right. So if you could read, you got it there? Ruth chapter 1, verse 14. That gives us a biblical reference to the background here. And then after that, I'll have you look at 2 Samuel reference.
13. I'm guessing this is 14. Would you then refrain from marrying? Is that right?
Is that Ruth
Ruth
chapter 1?
1, verses 14.
Yeah,
That's
let me see.
13, and then it goes right here.
Yeah, so keep
Okay.
going there.
Would you then refrain from marrying? No, my daughters, it has been far more bitter for me than for you, because the hand of Yah has turned against me. Then they wept aloud again. Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clung to her.
Okay, so that's the biblical account we get. That's not too much information. Orpah left, Ruth clung to her. That's about all we get. But in this book called The Biblical Antiquities of Philo, which you can get at Sacred Word Publishing, I'm going to read from a chapter in here, chapter 61, that gives us a little bit more information. Actually, I think it's chapter 60. Yeah. Is this the one? Oh, yeah, here we go. Okay. So this is an account of David and Goliath. I'm not going to read the whole account because that's coming up in a later episode, but in order to understand what's going on, David and Goliath actually have had a discussion before David killed Goliath. I thought that was kind of interesting. So it said, and David went forth unto Goliath and said to him, hear a word before you die. So he's talking to him.
What?
Were not the two women of whom you and I were born sisters? Your mother was Orpah and my mother was Ruth. So no, not mother, but like David's great-great-great-grandmother and Goliath's mother were sisters. And Orpah chose for herself the gods of the Philistines and went after them. But Ruth chose for herself the ways of the Most Mighty and walked in them. And now you and your brothers are born of Orpah, as you have arisen this day and come to lay Israel waste. Behold, I also that are born of your kindred are come to avenge my people. For your three brothers shall also fall into my hands after your death. And then you shall say to your mother, he that was born of your sister has not spared us. So can you imagine they're talking all this time? David's just telling him, okay, this is what's going to happen. And then he said, they put a stone in his sling. Okay, and I don't want to spoil the rest, but you guys know the story most likely. So they had a little discussion before David decided to kill him, which was the plan all along. Thank you for reading that. If you could look up 2 Samuel 21, verse 18. You can read that one next. There's also a midrash I wanted to read to you. A midrash is just like a Jewish commentary, kind of like Legends of the Jews. And I was just going to take a look at this one. This is a midrash on Orpah. It says, the rabbis maintain that Orpah and Ruth were sisters, the daughters of King Eglon of Moab, who in turn was the son of Balak. Ruth's descent from these kings is regarded as a mark of their merit, while no mention is made of Orpah in this context. Now listen to what happens. So let's see. Orpah and Ruth did not convert during their marriages to the two brothers, but remained Moabitesses, which is one of the reasons given for the punishment meted out to the brothers. And another tradition has them converting during their course of the marriages, but maintains that Orpah returned to her people and their gods. The negative attitude to Orpah is also reflected in the fact her husband Chilion is depicted more unfavorably than his brother Mahlon. So it says the rabbis identify the Orpah mentioned in the book of Ruth is the mother of the 4 warriors of Gath who appear in 2 Samuel 21, and the Goliath from Gath with the Goliath who fought David in 1 Samuel 17. Yeah. According to this identification, both Goliath and the other warriors are therefore Orpah's children. These men with their special powers were the recompense for the manner in which Orpah parted from her mother-in-law. Okay, so I'm going to have you read this one. Isaac's going to read 2 Samuel 21, verse 18. Okay. And yeah, see what that says.
After this, a battle took place with the Philistines at Gob. Then Sibbecai, is that right?
Yeah.
Sibbecai the Hushathite killed Saph, who was one of the descendants of the giants. Then there was another battle with the Philistines at Gob, and Elhanan, son of Jaar Oregim, the Bethlehemite, killed Goliath the Gittite.
Okay.
The shaft of whose spear was like a weaver's beam.
Okay. So just another reference to Goliath. I wanted to see if you could read this for me too. I'm going to have Isaac read from Legends of the Jews, and we have not gotten there yet in Digital Readers Club. This is book 4, so this is the next book we'll go into. But there's a little interesting information here called Encounter with Goliath. If you have this book, you can look on page 83. And if you could just read that paragraph,
Okay.
it'd be good.
David was not long permitted to enjoy the ease of life at court. The aggressive manner assumed by Goliath drove him to the front. It was a curious chance that designated David to be the slayer of Goliath, who was allied with him by the ties of blood. Goliath, it will be remembered, was the son of Moabitess Orpha, the sister-in-law of David's ancestress Ruth, and her sister as well, both having been the daughters of the Moabite king Eglon. David and Goliath differed as widely as their grandams. It literally says grandams.
Oh, it's supposed to be grandma's.
Okay. For in contrast to Ruth, the pious, religious Jewess, Orpah had led a life of unspeakable infamy. Her son Goliath was jeered at as the son of 100 fathers and one mother. But Yah lets not go unrewarded, even in the wicked. In return for the 40 steps Orpah had accompanied her mother-in-law Naomi, Goliath the Philistine, her son, was permitted to display his strength and skill for 40 days, and in return for the 4 tears Orpah had shed on parting from her mother-in-law, she was privileged to give birth to 4 giant sons.
Okay.
Oh, that's why there's 4 of them.
Yeah, so there, it's in there. There's other accounts that say that there was 4. This Antiquities of Philo said that there was 4.
See, okay, I gotta say, I'm a little disappointed then, because the fact that they're able to, make these immediate connections
Yeah.
and actual biblical fact about certain aspects of, the story, but then they distort other parts of it. I'm not very happy about that.
Yeah, and look at this. So because we're always taught in church that, oh, that's why David took 5 stones, because there was 5 brothers, right? Goliath and 4 brothers. Do you remember hearing that part?
Right.
Okay, this is from the Biblical Antiquities of Philo, also known as Pseudo-Philo, and it talks about why David took 7 stones. Okay.
And David went forth and took 7 stones, and wrote upon them the names of his fathers: Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, Moshe and Aharon, and his own name, and the name of the most mighty one, Yah, sent Servahel, the angel that is over strength.
Okay, so in other words, David had help from the Most High, we know that. But this gives us an actual name of the angel that God sent to be with David to make sure that he would take out Goliath.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it gives us some more information. I understand being disappointed too, because there's just parts that we've been taught for so long. We have it ingrained in our mind as, oh, okay, well, that's what the Bible says. So, but we don't look at the other books, and then it kind of becomes distorted as to what did the Bible say and what did a pastor teach us.
Right.
Because,
Well, my disappointment is that the show clearly has studied some of this,
oh,
right?
yeah.
But then it's not consistent with the truth.
Yeah.
There's parts of it that they took out or
Oh, that's what you mean.
rewrote, and it's just like, you clearly know, why don't you just put it out there?
Yeah, just follow it. Be consistent. Follow
Yeah.
it. I mean, there's definitely enough information to make the whole thing flow.
You know what I
right?
think it was is, this is just hypothetical, but perhaps when they were writing the show, they had those shadow writers, the ones that come in and look over everybody's work and make sure that it's quote unquote accurate.
Maybe.
And if it is not cohesive or like a part of their plan, then they're like, okay, rewrite this and then do this, right?
Could
And
be.
they have no choice, right?
It could be. Who knows what happens behind the scenes in these events? But yeah, and in this
Because
filming.
I can't imagine somebody reading all of this and then not being like, oh, this needs to get out there.
Yeah, or let's
know?
just follow this the way all the Legends of the Jews. This is like, I'm sure that they know about, and they probably have a lot more information than what we do.
Mm.
The Hollywood, the filmmakers, the royals, whoever's playing these parts.
So it
They
makes
have
you,
access to everything.
yeah, it makes me wonder if the people that wrote the show are on the other side.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So,
I wouldn't doubt it. No, and I've already tracked down which royal group it is that's playing these
there you
parts.
go.
It's from Monaco, so you guys can take a look at them. But yeah, All right, so I'm going to have you read something else, Isaac, if you don't mind. We already covered who is Achish. That was the next point I wanted to cover in here. We established that Orpah, yes, they did follow that at least accurately. They brought Orpah out, and that whole relation. I wonder if they're going to have a relationship between David and Goliath with what I just read in this book about David and Goliath having a discussion before he kills him
Right.
to
I
let
wonder
them
if
know
they,
that they're
you know,
related, because most people have no clue about that.
Mhm.
Like I was talking about that earlier in Bible study, and everyone was like, "What?
yeah,
They're
no,
related?"
that totally makes sense. I've always like heard that they were related somehow, but
Yeah, I think it was because I read Gary Wayne's first book back in 2017, and I immediately told you, I was like, "Guess what? He just said that they're related," but I wasn't
oh yeah,
I wasn't
that's
sure
probably
how that worked up until I did my own research, which is usually what happens. Okay, so we're gonna go into. Oh, actually, I want to make sure you guys got the connections. Why I had to go back to Shemyaza. Shemyaza mated with women, right? Probably a bunch of them before the flood.
they all got passed down.
Yeah, so and one of them was Ogias or Og Senior.
Mhm.
In the book of that I had you read in here, this one is listed in the book of Og. There was an Og Junior that escaped with Sihon on the ark and carried over into after the flood.
Okay.
So Og Junior is the one that's talked about in the Bible, and Og Junior is also known as Rapha, who is the mighty man that Orpah saw when she went back to her dad's palace, and she was with him. And she
So
conceived
that's Goliath's father,
okay, right. So who is Shemyaza to Goliath then?
the
we can trace-
grandson.
Shemyaza is the same as Satan. So Goliath is literally the offspring of Satan.
Interesting.
So doesn't that make sense in prophecy though, where it talks about how in the prophecy in the garden, how he will bruise his head and he will bruise his heel, that whole symbology. And that's why it would make sense. And I hate to jump ahead, but I have to say it, why Yeshua was crucified right over the spot where David buried Goliath's head outside the city wall in Jerusalem. Because his blood dripped down like right on that.
Really?
Yeah. So I never understood how Goliath was related to Satan, but now I get it. He's his like great grandson or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow.
So that explains why his reign would last forever, like David's line, right?
Yeah, because from David came the Messiah.
Yeah, the Messiah.
And who will reign forever? It's not
Right.
like David's gonna reign forever.
No,
but the
yeah.
Messiah. Yeah.
But his line, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
wow.
So when you that's why it was so
Whoa.
monumental, David and Goliath fighting, because that's literally, a son of the Most High, or not a son, but like a representative of the Most High God against Satan.
Right.
Does that make it more deep? Now you
Satan's
understand?
kid too.
Yeah, Satan's offspring.
Mm. Wow.
Yeah. So that's why it was so significant. And that's why even the two sisters in the book of Ruth is even mentioned. Just because I think that the authors of the Bible were either hoping that we get this or just giving these little fragments and being like, well, if they read the extra biblicals, they'll get it. Most people don't get that. That's why they don't trace back the genealogies to figure out who these people are.
This is Hebrew knowledge that most people don't understand or even get. So,
Yeah.
I'm guaranteed half the stuff that is taken out of just the Bible is like taken out on purpose.
Oh, totally, totally. Like, how would we have ever figured all this out without reading extra biblicals?
No ways.
That who Goliath actually was.
Oh.
Yeah, because I read the Bible how many times in my lifetime? I had no clue.
The implications are so more. It's so more realistic. Like.
Mm-hmm.
And it for a lot of people that say, oh well, God changes. No, he never did.
Did not change.
He's been doing his plan the whole time. So
if you could read Joshua chapter 13, verse 3 and 4.
Okay.
I think out of all these, I know it's getting a little late, so maybe we'll go another 10, 15 minutes or so and see if your dad wants to comment a little bit more.
13?
Yeah, Joshua 13, verse 3 and 4. This just talks, this scripture right here, it just I did a whole bunch of other research just because I was so upset that in the series that they did not make it like giants had been around, so for hundreds of years ruling over these lands.
Mm.
Then and they made it like it was such a huge deal for like King Achish to go and make Goliath's, armor and all this other stuff. And when Goliath would have been ruling over everything, and his
Right.
brothers, and Achish would have been a giant as well. So this is another verse that proves that there is this Pentapolis situation going on in Philistia.
It makes more sense why he was challenging Saul too, because he
Who?
was Goliath.
Oh yeah.
He was saying, "King for king, let's go fight."
Yes. He wanted, and that's what giants were known for. They wanted to do that one-on-one Mortal Kombat battle.
Right.
Just who's the more mighty guy.
Right. So Goliath was really the king of the Philistines.
Oh yeah, totally. And as well for that section, because as you're
Right.
seeing here, there was a Pentapolis. There was like 5 city-states, and one giant resided over each area,
Right.
and Goliath resided over Gath, which is within Philistia.
Oh, okay.
So it was like him and his brothers and another giant, since we know there was not 5 right now.
Ah.
Okay, but if you can read that, Joshua
I'm going to start
13.
at 2 because 3 is literally like a parenthesis.
Okay,
So,
okay.
this is the land that still remains, all the regions of the Philistines and all those of Geshurites. Parenthesis, from the Sihor, which is east of Egypt, northward to the boundary of Ekron. It is reckoned as Canaanite. There are 5 rulers of the Philistines, those of Gaza: Ashdod, Ashkelon, Gath, and Ekron.
That's the 5
The
city-states,
5
yeah.
cities. And those of the Avim in the south, all the land of the Canaanites, and Meara, is that right? Meara,
Yeah, I think that. Let me see. Yeah, Meara.
Meara, that belongs to the Sidonians, to Aphek, to the boundary of the Amorites, and the land of Gibeonites, and all Lebanon, toward the east from Baal Gad, below Mount Hermon, to Lebo Hamath. All the inhabitants of the hills country from Lebanon to Misrophath Maim. Misrophath Maim.
You're doing good. You're doing
Okay,
good.
even all the Sidonians. I will myself. Okay.
Okay, so that just shows all the lands that were ruled over by giants, and then the series it makes like Goliath was this novelty, like there's a giant. Oh my goodness, he's been hiding out under the mountain. I mean, I don't know why they did that.
You know what I think they're trying to do? They're trying to be like the giant of what is that?
The BFG.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
kidding.
maybe. No,
I'm
that
kidding.
hey, that might be accurate.
I know.
Oh my gosh.
I know. That's what I thought. BFG. If you guys haven't watched that movie, it's The Big Friendly Giant by
Yeah.
Roald Dahl.
Yeah, it's originally a book series.
They're trying to make
it's a
like some
book,
of the
but-
giants were good, which we know they probably weren't.
Yeah.
Okay, so along those same lines, I'm just going to read in Gary Wayne a paragraph on page 480 that he has about, and he calls it the Philistine Mice Network. And do you know why? You remember the thing with the mice that God sent against the Philistines? The mice?
Oh right, they went up their rectums and were like
Yes.
eating their intestines.
Yes, and pulling it out of their bodies. So it's ironic because then God sent the plague of the mice and the tumors. So in order to appease God, the Philistines, they made 1 mouse of gold from each city-state and 1 tumor of gold from each city-state, and they brought it as an offering to the Most High so that he would have peace with them. And
Did it
stop
work?
The mice stopped, and the tumors stopped after that, so part of that worked. So Gary Wayne calls it the Philistine Mice Network, which I thought was hilarious. The
Oh my
Philistine-
gosh.
The Philistine Mice Network was bolstered by the Avim, the Anakim, the Perazim, the Kerathim, the Caphtorim, and the Pelathim giants with their village fortress networks. The Hazarim, akin to Jabin's Hazor fortresses, and Duke Akbor's fortress city-states of the Horim, Amalekim, and Edomite alliance. Scripture indicates a close geopolitical association between the Horim, that's who Esau married into, the Amalekim, that's Amalek, that's Esau's grandson, and Edomite alliance with the Philistine confederacy. So you remember how the offspring of Esau hated the Hebrews. So of course they're confederates with the Philistines. They all hated the Hebrews. Like they wanted them out of there. They couldn't stand them.
I like that one between the Horim. Like now I know where that the word whore came from.
Oh, totally.
Stop acting like a whoreem.
Exactly. And these were the half goat people. Okay?
Oh, yeah, even more so.
With the
Right?
hairy,
Remember
hairy
the
feet.
satyrs? The satyrs are always really horny, right? So,
Yeah, and they had the hairy goat feet and everything.
Jeez.
That's who Esau. That's why Esau married into them, right? Because he was all red and hairy himself.
Yeah,
So it makes sense.
they understood him.
They understood each other. Yes, they understood his hairiness and his pain. Okay, so I want to go into the deities that these guys worship because that has to do with what Goliath said to David. And I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit on that, but I really wanted you to hear this part about their gods because it's so interesting. So page 345 in Gary Wayne's book has some more information on this. I know I'm using his book a lot, but he just has the most information on all these giants, more than anybody else I could find. All right, so I'm going to read, let's see. All right, so the Avim, that was the offspring of, that was giant country right here. And their Avim, they were conquered by the Philistines. And so this assertion is possible, but one ought to note as well the Avim were an aboriginal nation of southwestern Palestine, and they migrated down from the northern mountains where they established satellite states in Assyria, Edom, Gaza, Benjamin, and perhaps elsewhere. And it makes sense because there's always that conflict in Israel going on with Gaza right now, and so now you know why it's such a huge conflict.
Right.
2 Kings 17:24 says, "The king of Assyria brought men from Babylon, from Kutha, from Ava, that's the Avites, from Hamath, from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel." This is after the captivity. You remember, in the time of Yeshua, how they thought Samaritans were horrible?
Right.
They didn't want to help. This is why, because they were all giants. They possessed Samaria and dwelt in the cities thereof. So that's why the Samaritans, the Hebrews didn't want to help them, because they hated them. The Samaritans hated them, the Israelites didn't like them, and this goes all the way back to these days. That's why that Good Samaritan story is like pretty novel. That was from this right here. And it's
Right.
crazy because we only get information about that in this one verse out of the entire Bible.
So it wasn't just because they were half blood, right? It was merely because they were the half blood of Babylonians.
of their enemies,
Yeah.
of the Canaanite tribes.
Right.
So the Assyrians brought them in after they conquered Israel. While they brought the tribes into captivity, they brought all these guys in. And guess who came from the Samaritans? The guys who infiltrated the Levitical priesthood in the time of Yeshua. The Pharisees. They come from Samaria. It's these guys. So when you say they're serpent seed, they literally are serpent seed.
So
that
it
came in.
was it wasn't just like the half Hebrews. It was also the Magi, right?
Well,
'Cause
not,
remember the
not in that text, but the
Yeah.
magicians.
Yeah, the magicians.
Not the
yeah.
Magi that came from
no,
Ophir.
not the Magi that came
Yeah.
from Ophir,
But
but
the
yeah,
magicians.
the magicians.
The
Because remember, they
sorcerers.
had the same name for the ones that worked magic in Egypt
Yes.
as the ones that came from the east. So
Yep.
right, but yeah, there's the magicians, and that's how they drove out the original priest line, right?
Yep. Isn't that crazy? So in order to make all these connections, it's kind of like you have to like go word by word, literally in the
And
Bible.
see, I thought it was a political move. I always thought it was a political move. Like, oh, they drove out the priests because the people decided to no longer believe in them because God wasn't answering them anymore.
That's
right?
what we're taught.
That's what I thought. And then, but now it makes more sense. It was just like, oh, they were probably like doing these little like signs and wonders and like doing their magic.
Oh, yeah.
And then they were like, oh, they must actually be priests. And then they just let them in.
That's true. Yeah. It was evil. It was really evil what they did.
Whoa.
Okay, so I'm going to read about this, their gods now. So
What it reminds me of?
what?
The name it and claim it and all
Oh,
those.
totally.
They do these little works and wonders,
And they
then
call
infiltrate.
themselves Christians. So it deceives everybody because they're pretending to be prophets of the Most High when they're prophets of Satan. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Mong.
What did you say?
My coworker said that the other day too. He teases me every time. He
Your
said,
hair?
Yeah, he said I like Isaac's sideshow Bob hairdo.
He says that all the time, and every time he looks at me now when I'm working, he just laughs at me. I'm like, stop it!
All right, baby's gonna like playing with that though.
Ugh, it needs to go. It really needs to go.
I have a scissors.
Yes.
Okay, the Ava region of Assyria was one of the regions where the Assyrian king later imported people to replace the Israelites of the northern kingdom after their exile. Avai was the city where the Avim worshipped the god Nibkats. Nibkats, meaning to bark like a dog, was of foreign origin. His idolatrous image exhibited a man's body with a dog or jackal's head.
Oh, I've seen those
The
pictures.
dog-headed,
Right.
yeah. The worship of a god with a human body and animal head was common in the Assyrian beast empires.
So much like Egypt. Okay.
Yep, Nibkat's dog-like depictions conjure up images of gods like Anubis of Egypt, just like what you said. In Sabian texts, Nibkats was evil, a god who sat on a throne upon the earth while his feet rested upon Tartarus, or the abyss, which invokes images of fallen angels, the assembly and thrones of the gods, and impassioned Nephilim sent to the abyss for creating spurious Nephilim, Rephaim, and other kinds of giants that looked just like their fathers. The Avim Nibkat's god was grouped scripturally with the child sacrificing worship of the Amalekim gods of the east, Adramelech and Anamelech. Moloch was a god associated both with the Amalekim and the Baalim gods who demanded child sacrifice. The Avim worshipped another bizarre god named Tartak, who is also a god of foreign derivation, whose name meant Prince of Darkness.
Mm.
Tartak was worshipped in the form of a donkey or perhaps a horse or unicorn. Tartak is thought by some of Persian origination a god of war, prince of the underworld, and a hero of darkness or the underworld.
So Hasatan.
Yep. So you want to read this one? 2 Kings 17:31.
And the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak, and the
Sepharvites.
Sepharvites burnt their children in fire to
Adramelech.
Adramelech, I was going to say Andromeda, and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvim.
Okay. The Avim had curious
Sephara.
associations and settlements in the proximity to the Mesopotamian Aryans and thus connections to the people of the East, recorded in the book of Judges. The people of the East included giants. Kedem means ancient time, from old, antiquity, from immediately after the flood or even before. All right, so it just talks about the giants. The giants came from all over, and doesn't it make sense why Canaan, when they were leaving the ark to go and take their lands, you know, that Noah assigned to Shem, Ham, Japheth, and their offspring, it makes a lot more sense now why, when Ham and his sons, one of Ham's sons is Canaan, right? When they were migrating from the ark to Africa, which is the main land where Ham and his sons inherited, of course, with Australia and the hot lands of the south, why did Canaan all of a sudden see this piece of land and just want to stop and be like, nope, this is mine. Even though it's under Shem's name, I'm taking this plot of land right here. What was associated with that plot of land that for his offspring later on? Why would Canaan wanted that piece of land so badly that we call Israel today? What was located there? A
Goliath's head?
certain mountain. A
Mhm.
certain
Hermon.
holy, yeah.
Yeah,
Because they saw that. They're like, this is where it all started. This is where we came from. We got to take this place.
that's our birthright.
And then Og probably wanted to be there as well, because Og was from before the flood. He knew exactly where that land was at.
Right.
So he just waited till the waters subsided. He went in there and then probably mingled with all the Canaanites. You know, they all just wanted that spot of land. Because I always wondered, what's so special about Israel? I mean, it's nice, but it's not like paradise or beautiful as
Right.
other places. But
And
it's a spiritual thing. It's
and
a
then that's
spiritual.
why Yah later gave it to Moshe and the people, right?
Yeah, well, he said, Abraham, starting
Mhm.
with him, take back this land. This is yours.
Right.
So he said, you and your offspring are going to take this back. So he let Abraham live there, you know, without being bothered much by all the giants that were around and his
Mhm.
offspring. Then, of course, we get the wars with the sons of Jacob.
Right.
They all started fighting with the giants after Shechem incident, you know, and then it just trickled down, you know, for when the Israelites were in Egypt for all those years. And then God was like, okay, it's time. Let me send in Moshe. All right.
They finally
so-
learned their lesson.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's what I have for today. Now at the end,
The end.
it's almost the end, guys. I hope that wasn't too much to just throw in everybody all at once. But I wanted you guys to have the background and to make those connections, because unless you have it spelled out for you, you're not going to be able to like just pick and choose all these different verses in the Bible and have it make sense as to what's going on.
I like that, Shay. The Egyptian magician brethren. That's a
Yeah,
good one.
like yeah. You want to join us? Okay. Well, thank you guys for joining us today. We look forward to the next episode of House of David, and make sure you tune into that. When is that one coming out? Do you know?
Thursday again.
Thursday. Okay, so in 2 days there should be another episode. And was there anything else we need to cover here?
Well, aside from the study we did, I guess for the episode there was a little inconsistencies too, right?
Yeah. Did you want to address any of that?
I don't remember it. I mean, you spoke on the sword and the shield, how he wasn't actually smaller than Goliath. He was probably around the same size. The king, what's his name again?
Achish.
Achish.
Even though Achish should
Yeah.
have been about that big too.
Yeah. And then I can't think of anything
Mount
else.
Sinai. Did you want to talk about that? They show this is not in the Bible, but they
Oh,
show
right.
Jonathan.
Yeah, they
trying to
showed
find Samuel.
Jonathan go to Mount Sinai, but like according to the locations back then, it was way too far to just make it like a day's journey. So
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I think it would have took like 4 days, something like that.
At least, yeah.
It could have. Maybe they just did a what do they call it, a time lapse or something. So
Or maybe he had a flying vehicle we don't know about.
oh right, yeah, the horse had wings. It was actually Pegasus.
Anything else?
Mm.
We're having a show. There's no show this
Oh yeah, this
Oh, yeah.
Saturday is our Shabbat,
Shabbat,
weekend.
oh.
So sorry guys, but we'll see you on Tuesday next week, and throughout the week. I think Zen is having a show with Brett Thomas. I'm not sure if I'll help out or not, but if they ask me to, maybe I will. And then we have Digital Readers Club Saturday, so we'll see you guys all then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so no Hebrew class this weekend. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, moderators, Tammy, Monkulas, Sharon, Brick. Thank you guys for all coming on in and moderating. I'm gonna have to look at all your comments later on. I missed a lot. Monkulas said, "Is that Noble's foot on the lower left-hand side?"
I don't know how you're seeing that, but his feet are up. So
I'm in my recliner, Mom.
What is he looking at? The lower left-hand side. I don't see it, Mong.
so this
Sorry.
would be left hand. No, that is my wife's foot, I think. So
Is that Kaylee's foot?
yeah, she's over there feeding baby. So
Alrighty.
it was feeding time, like right as we're about to start the show. So
Patrick said back then it took 40 years to walk a 20-hour walk. I don't know. They should not even had Samuel going up on Mount Sinai or Jonathan finding. I don't know where they got any of that. There's nothing in extra biblicals about that, unless you guys know of anything. But yes, thank you guys for all being here. Thank you again, moderators, and we will see you on Tuesday next week when we have another review. So
Yeah.
don't forget, watch House of David this Thursday. We'll see you guys maybe in the show tomorrow
You
and
guys
at Digital
still-
Readers Club.
yeah, Digital Readers Club. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So we'll keep reading Legends of the Jews.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thank you for helping out.
Yeah, I was here. Okay.
No, you read. You did a lot. Good
All right,
conversation.
I gotta go end the stream now.
All right.
Aloha, everybody.
Shaloha.